10,000 steps. You have heard it so many times. It probably feels like a medical commandment, something carved into stone and handed down from a mountaintop. Walk 10,000 steps a day and your heart will be fine. Your arteries will stay clean. You will live to see your grandchildren graduate. Except, that number did not come from a clinical trial. It did not come from a hospital. It did not come from a single cardiologist or vascular surgeon anywhere on Earth. It came from a 1965 Japanese pedometer advertisement, a marketing campaign. The device was called Manpo-K, which translates to 10,000 step meter. The name was chosen because the Japanese character for 10,000 looked like a person walking. That is the entire scientific basis for the number that has been guiding your exercise routine for 60 years. I am Dr. George, and I need to tell you something that might change the way you walk for the rest of your life. It is not about how many steps you take. It is about how you take them. Because the research now shows, clearly and consistently, that how fast you walk is a stronger predictor of whether you live or die from cardiovascular disease than how far you walk. And the difference is not small. Here is what we are going to cover today. First, the specific speed threshold where walking stops being a pleasant activity and starts actually healing your arteries. Second, the post-meal walking window that clears blood sugar from your bloodstream through a mechanism that works completely independently of insulin, which matters enormously after 65. Third, the simple interval technique that a Japanese university tested on seniors and found to be dramatically more effective than continuous walking at the same effort level. And fourth, the muscle-artery connection that explains why your legs are not just carrying you around the block, but are actively protecting your cardiovascular system with every step. I want to know something from you before we go further. When you walk, do you walk like you are going somewhere? Or do you walk like you are just being outside? There is no wrong answer. But your arteries care about the difference, more than you might think. Drop your honest answer in the comments, because I think the responses to that question are going to be very revealing. Now, a woman named Margaret lived 4 houses down from where I grew up. 72 years old, widowed, fiercely independent. The kind of woman who kept her own yard, drove her own car, and had strong opinions about everything, including how her neighbor parked his truck. Margaret walked every single morning, rain or shine, 7 days a week. She had one of those little clip-on pedometers, and she tracked her steps like a stockbroker tracking the Dow Jones. She averaged 11,000 steps a day. She was proud of that number. She told everyone about that number. And then Margaret had a stroke. Not a massive one. She recovered most of her function. But when we talked afterward, when she asked me how this could have happened when she walked every single day, I had to tell her something nobody had ever explained. Margaret walked slowly, beautifully slowly. She strolled through her neighborhood the way you might walk through a botanical garden, stopping to look at flowers, waving at neighbors, letting her dog investigate every mailbox. Her heart rate barely rose above resting. Her breathing never changed. Her arteries experienced almost no mechanical challenge. She was moving, but her body was not adapting. Here is the mechanism that makes this matter. Inside every blood vessel in your body, there is a paper-thin inner lining called the endothelium. This lining produces nitric oxide, the molecule that tells your arteries to relax, to widen, to stay flexible. As you age, nitric oxide production declines. Your arteries stiffen. Blood pressure rises. Plaque finds a welcoming surface. But when you walk briskly, something very specific happens. The increased blood flow creates a physical force called shear stress against that endothelial lining. Think of it like a river running faster through a channel. The faster flow stimulates the cells lining the channel to produce more nitric oxide. A landmark study published in Circulation took sedentary older men whose endothelial function had declined by 25% compared to younger adults, put them on a 3-month brisk walking program, and measured the result. Their endothelial function was restored by approximately 30%, returning to levels indistinguishable from young, trained individuals. From walking, not from medication. not from surgery. Walking at the right pace. A pooled analysis of over 50,000 walkers from 11 British population studies found that those who reported walking at an average or brisk pace had a 20 to 24% lower risk of dying from any cause and a 21 to 24% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease specifically compared to slow walkers. And here is the critical detail. These benefits were independent of how much total walking they did. A person who walked briskly for 30 minutes received more cardiovascular protection than a person who strolled slowly for 90. So, what does brisk actually mean? It means walking fast enough that your breathing noticeably increases. You can still talk, but you would not want to sing. You feel effort, not exhaustion, not pain, just a sense that your body is working. For most people over 65, that is somewhere around 3 to 3.5 miles per hour. But honestly, forget the number. The breathlessness test is more reliable. If you can carry on a full conversation without any change in your breathing, you are not walking briskly. You are strolling. And strolling, while better than sitting, is not giving your endothelium the sheer stress signal it needs to produce nitric oxide. Margaret's walks were 11,000 steps of strolling. My recommendation to her and to you is different. 4,000 to 7,000 steps of purposeful, brisk walking where you can feel your heart working is worth more to your arteries than 15,000 steps of gentle wandering. A meta-analysis of 15 international cohorts, published in The Lancet Public Health, confirmed that for adults over 60, the mortality benefit from steps plateaued at roughly 6 to 8,000 per day. Beyond that, you are not buying additional protection. You are just covering more sidewalk. Now, the second thing I want to show you changes when you walk, not just how. There is a window after every meal when your blood sugar rises. That is normal. Your body digests food, glucose enters the bloodstream, insulin signals your cells to absorb it. But after 65, those cells become less responsive to insulin. The locks on the doors start to jam. Glucose stays in the bloodstream longer, and every hour it stays elevated above 140 milligrams per deciliter. It is quietly irritating the inner lining of your arteries. The same endothelium we just talked about. Here is where walking performs a trick that no pill can replicate. When you contract a muscle, any muscle, it activates a glucose transporter called GLUT4. This transporter physically pulls sugar out of your bloodstream and into muscle tissue. And it does this without insulin. It does not need your pancreas. It does not care about your insulin resistance. It responds purely to movement. Dr. Loretta DiPietro at George Washington University designed a study specifically for inactive adults over 60 with impaired fasting glucose. She compared 3 15-minute walks taken after each meal against one single 45-minute walk taken at a random time during the day. Same total walking time, same effort, different timing. The post-meal walkers had significantly better 24-hour blood sugar control. The after-dinner walk was especially powerful, reducing the 3-hour post-dinner glucose spike more effectively than the single longer session. I want you to think about what you normally do after dinner. If you are like most Americans over 65, you sit down, maybe in a recliner, maybe on the couch with the television remote already in your hand. I am not judging. I have done it myself more times than I should admit. But that is the exact window when a 10-minute walk around your block, or even around your living room if the weather is bad, would do the most good for your arteries. 10 minutes. Not 30. Not an hour. 10 minutes after dinner, and your muscles will clear glucose that would otherwise spend the next 3 hours scraping the inside of your blood vessels. How many of you actually walk after dinner right now? And if you do, did anyone ever explain to you why the timing matters? Or did you just do it because it felt right? I am asking because I think there is a huge gap between what people do instinctively and what they understand mechanically. And when you understand the mechanism, The habit sticks in a way that good intentions alone never manage. The third thing I want to show you is what happens when you stop walking at one speed and start varying your pace. Because this is where the research gets genuinely exciting, and it involves a technique so simple that Margaret learned it in a single afternoon. It is called interval walking, and the protocol was developed at Shinshu University in Japan by a researcher named Hiroshi Noze, who tested it specifically on middle-aged and older adults. The structure is straightforward. You alternate 3 minutes of fast walking with 3 minutes of slow walking. Fast means roughly 70% of your maximum effort. Slow means a comfortable recovery pace, back and forth, fast, slow, for 20 to 30 minutes total. That does not sound revolutionary. It sounds like something a gym teacher might suggest to a group of reluctant teenagers, but the results in older adults were striking. In a study of 246 adults with an average age of 63, 5 months of interval walking produced roughly a 10% increase in cardiovascular fitness, a 13 to 17% increase in leg strength, and a drop in resting systolic blood pressure of approximately 9 points. Continuous walking at the same total energy expenditure, same duration, same distance, produced significantly smaller improvements across every measure. A follow-up study of nearly 700 adults, average age 65, confirmed and extended these findings. Cardiovascular fitness rose by 14%. Lifestyle disease markers improved by 17%. And the researchers discovered something important about dosing. The benefit was driven almost entirely by the fast walking segments. It was not total walking time that mattered. It was the time spent in the challenging portions. Roughly 50 minutes per week of fast walking appeared to be the threshold, where benefits plateaued. 50 minutes per week of fast walking. That is about 7 minutes a day, broken into 3-minute bursts with recovery between them. You could do this on your way to check the mail and back. A separate randomized trial tested interval walking against continuous walking in patients with type 2 diabetes. Interval walking raised cardiovascular fitness by 16%. Continuous walking produced no measurable change. Interval walking also reduced body mass and waist-to-hip ratio. Continuous walking did not. Same energy, same time, different pattern, completely different outcome. Why does this work so much better? Because short bursts of higher effort create a metabolic signal that steady-state walking cannot match. Your mitochondria, the tiny energy factories inside every muscle cell, respond to challenge. When you push them briefly beyond their comfort zone, they adapt. They multiply. They become more efficient. A landmark study at the Mayo Clinic found that high-intensity interval training raised mitochondrial respiratory capacity by 49% in older adults, compared to 28% in younger participants. The older body was actually more responsive to the stimulus. Your age is not working against you here. It is working for you, provided you give it the right signal. You do not need to run. You do not need to join a gym. You do not need special shoes. You need to walk fast enough that you feel it for 3 minutes. Then slow down and recover for 3 minutes, and repeat that 4 or 5 times. If 3 minutes feels like too much at first, start with 1 minute fast, 2 minutes slow. The structure matters. The specific duration is flexible. Now, the fourth piece is the one that ties everything together, and it involves your legs in a way that most people have never considered. Your leg muscles are the largest muscle group in your body. They contain an enormous network of capillaries and a disproportionate share of your body's insulin receptors. When these muscles are strong and active, they function as your body's primary blood sugar disposal system. Every time you contract them, they pull glucose out of circulation and store it safely. They are not just locomotion, they are a metabolic organ. But after 60, you begin losing muscle mass. The clinical term is sarcopenia, and it is silent. You do not feel it happening. You notice it one day when the gallon of milk feels heavier than it used to, or when getting off a low couch requires a hand on the armrest. A study published in the American Journal of Medicine followed older adults and found that higher muscle mass index independently predicted longer survival, regardless of body fat. A separate study in arteriosclerosis, thrombosis, and vascular biology found that lower relative muscle mass was directly associated with higher coronary artery calcium scores in a dose-dependent pattern. Less muscle, more calcified arteries. The relationship was consistent across every category they measured. And here is the feedback loop that nobody explains. Less muscle means less glucose clearance after meals. Less glucose clearance means higher blood sugar spikes. Higher spikes mean more arterial damage. More arterial damage means stiffer arteries. And stiffer arteries are associated with accelerated muscle loss, creating a spiral that feeds itself year after year. The countermeasure is not complicated. It is strength, specifically in your legs. Wall sits, where you press your back against a wall and lower yourself until your thighs are roughly parallel to the floor, and hold for as long as you can. Deep lunges, slow and controlled. Bodyweight squats, holding the back of a kitchen chair for balance. These are not gym exercises. These are things you can do in your hallway, during a commercial break, while watching Jeopardy! After 60, your muscles develop what researchers call anabolic resistance. They do not respond to protein and exercise as efficiently as younger muscles do. The practical implication is that you need more frequent activation, not just one gym session per week, and you need more protein per meal, roughly 25 to 30 grams, to overcome the threshold. A study published in the FACEB journal confirmed that older muscle requires nearly double the protein stimulus of younger muscle to achieve the same rebuilding response. Margaret started interval walking 3 days a week. On the other days, she did her regular walk, but added a 10-minute post-dinner loop around her block. Twice a day, morning and evening, she did a 1-minute wall sit in her kitchen doorway. She increased her breakfast protein from a piece of toast to 2 scrambled eggs with a slice of cheese. 6 months later, her walking speed had increased by nearly half a mile per hour. She told me she did not measure it. She just noticed that she was arriving at the end of her street faster and less winded than she used to be. Her fasting blood sugar, which had been creeping upward for 3 years, dropped 11 points. Her doctor, who had been considering adding a blood sugar medication, told her to keep doing whatever she was doing. She told me, "I used to think I was doing everything right. I was just doing it too gently." That sentence is the entire point of this video. Walking is one of the greatest gifts you can give your cardiovascular system after 65. But it is not the walking itself that heals your arteries. It is the challenge, the sheer stress against your endothelium, the GLUT4 activation after meals, the mitochondrial signal from interval bursts, the muscle mass that keeps your glucose disposal system functional. Without those elements, you are moving, but you are not adapting. And adaptation is everything. So here is your protocol. Walk briskly enough that your breathing changes. 4,000 to 7,000 steps daily. Add a 10-minute walk after dinner every night. Try interval walking 2 to 3 times per week, alternating 3 minutes fast with 3 minutes slow. And twice a day, activate your leg muscles for 60 seconds. A wall sit, deep lunges, bodyweight squats, anything that makes your thighs burn just enough to remind your body that those muscles still matter. None of this requires a gym membership. None of it requires equipment. None of it requires your doctor's permission, though bringing this information to your next appointment is one of the smartest things you can do. Everything I have shared today is general educational information based on published medical research. Your situation is unique. Before changing your exercise routine, especially if you have existing heart conditions or joint issues, please talk to your physician. Take care of your heart. It has been beating for you since before you took your first breath. The least you can do is take it for a proper walk. And if this changed how you think about your daily walk, if it made you realize that you might have been doing something good, but not doing it quite right, I wonder how many other people in your life are making the same mistake right now. A spouse, A walking buddy, a neighbor who does the same slow loop every morning and thinks that is enough. Maybe tomorrow morning, you walk together, a little faster this time.